San Diego Pride Week kicked off with SheFest on Saturday. It's a celebration of LGBTQ women and people who are non-binary and gender non-conforming. Live bands strutted the stage. Food trucks served up vegan and Indian fusion dishes, and hundreds of people checked out booths set up by vendors and community groups.
The vibe of SheFest is very much connecting with people.
Kathy Molig is Executive Director of Trans Family Support Services.
There's an entertainment factor, there's a community building factor, and there's an educational factor.
Hundreds of thousands of people are expected to attend the week-long Pride celebration in San Diego. But behind the scenes, the good vibes are tempered by a growing concern. Fernando Lopez is Executive Director of San Diego Pride.
What we're seeing right here, not just in San Diego, but all over the country, is a rise in anti-LGBT sentiment.
Here are just a few examples. Hate crimes based on sexual orientation in California increased nearly 30% last year, according to the State Department of Justice. Incidents against trans and gender nonconforming people jumped by more than 50%. Far-right groups have organized in-person confrontations at drag events across the country, and just last month, police arrested a man for an alleged bomb threat against Nashville's Pride event. All of this has gotten the attention of insurance providers.
I'm hearing from prides from LA, San Francisco, New York, and a ton of these smaller prides all over the country that the rise in insurance fees is untenable.
Insurance is required for pretty much any large event. It helps cover liabilities, like if someone sues after tripping over a curb, or if there's a mass shooting. San Diego Pride typically purchases an extra layer of insurance to cover any major incidents. Last year, the coverage cost them about $10,000. But this year, according to Lopez, it would have cost
$300,000. You can't budget for that. How could I budget for that year over year?
Pride events are being scrutinized in really unprecedented ways.
Bruce Smiley Califf is vice president and senior underwriter at Califf Insurance. The company specializes in coverage for large outdoor events, including dozens of Pride festivals nationwide. He says insurance costs are going up for all concerts and festivals, for several reasons. Attendees are more likely to file lawsuits over minor incidents. Insurance markets are also overburdened in general, due to a rise in costly claims tied to things like hurricanes and wildfires. And there's the growing threat of mass casualty events, like a shooting. That's a particular concern when it comes to Pride festivals.
Carriers are terrified by very, very large events, and especially ones that could be deemed a little bit more risky when it comes to acts of violence or perceived violence or threats.
These ballooning insurance costs are creating tough business decisions for LGBTQ organizations. San Diego Pride went with a more basic insurance plan this year because spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on extra insurance would have meant pulling funding from other essential programs. But that means they may be on the hook financially if a major incident happens. Sacramento's Pride Festival had to raise its ticket prices for the first time in 3 decades, in part because its event insurance more than doubled in recent years.
We got to a place where we couldn't just supplement all the additional costs with more sponsorship or more beverage sales. We had to raise the ticket prices.
David Heitzteman is CEO of the Sacramento LGBT Community Center, which organizes Sacramento Pride. He says safety and security is their top concern, but he fears increased entry fees could make the Pride Festival less accessible at a time when the LGBTQ community needs it most. Scott Rodd, KPBS News.